Hello, Internet. I am Pastor Recoil, and welcome to my parish. Today is the 14th Sunday after Pentecost, and we're going to talk about it. Welcome to Pastor Recoil's Parish, where I talk about some things in the Bible that you may not have heard about in church, either because it's not quite appropriate for all audiences, or it just isn't something that's easy to talk about in a sermon. Today's readings for the 14th Sunday after Pentecost are Jeremiah 4, 11 through 12 and 22 through 28, Psalm 14, 1 Timothy 1, 12 through 17, and Luke 15, 1 through 10. Today we're going to talk about what it means to be lost. Now, Christians love to talk about the lost, and what the people who say that usually mean is folk who aren't Christian. They read parables like the ones of the lost sheep and lost coin and the lost son that follows but isn't part of our reading for today, and they say, I'm supposed to be like Jesus and seek out the lost and bring them to faith. Except what's interesting is the lost in these parables are really insiders who have gone a little bit astray. Jesus is talking to first century Judeans about other Judeans. These are people who have received the same cultural promises. They're descended from Abraham. They're part of the same group. When Jesus tells these parables, Jesus is talking to his peers, fellow experts in the Torah, about tax collectors and sinners, which is the kind of a first century catch-all for people who don't matter much because they do bad things. These are folk who, while they are outsiders in the community, they are still in the community, even if they would be considered a little bit lost. And I think this is an important distinction. So many of the things that Christians like to read as referring to people who are outside of God's people are actually written to God's people. For instance, when Jeremiah is talking about how bad the people of Israel are at doing what God thinks is important, that's one insider yelling at his community. Psalm 14 isn't about fools who are outside the community of Israel. It's about people who know the things that God has done, know the stories of what God has done, and yet are choosing to live as if the God who did those things isn't real. This is important because it's one thing for me to call out Christians for not being good Christians. It's another thing entirely for me to tell someone who is Muslim or Jewish or non-theistic or anything in between that they're not being good Christians. That's just offensive. And it's equally offensive to call them lost just because they don't put their faith in the Christian God. It is the height of arrogance to assume that everyone needs to follow Christian rules, even non-Christians. It's an uncomfortable holdover from a more colonialistic time, and it needs to stop. It is well past time for Christians to get our own house in order, to deal with those ways that we are the lost ones, and become a group who seeks to proclaim the kingdom of God not through force, but through loving service to all who are in need. So if you want to see more content like this, check out the links to my right or click the logo below my face to subscribe so you'll know when my next video comes out. Thank you for watching, and take the time this week to love your neighbor as yourself, especially if you don't like them all that much.